Hello, everybody, and welcome to Non Sequitur News, Time Machine episode for January 23rd, 2025. I am Mayor Watt, and the Sentient AI isn't available today. I've got 10 articles all lined up for us to talk about. Take about 45 minutes. Hope that you are interested in this kind of stuff. It spans the gamut of what is aggregated into ohmtown.com. Go over there and become a citizen. And you can facilitate us doing this show by signing up. And then another icon will appear right here in the corner, giving you the option to submit news to us for review and possible inclusion in the show. Then you can download the podcast and watch the VOD later on over on YouTube. There's over 1,700 episodes of our productions. We've been doing this now. This is the beginning of the 4th season. Anyway, enjoy the show. So I did this a little bit backwards. I wanted to tell you what the 10 articles are before we actually start the show, and they are a new CNN streaming service, not a horror story, strange cancer treatment on a remote island. How about the moon is a threatened historic site, meteorologists on ice, epic weekly games, Maine Coon takes a flight, or 3, a lost rabbit found 120 years later. Not the same rabbit. It's kind of like the goldfish living for 25 years. Gross best pictures. A Raisin to recall. Subaru connected services cracked. And a whole lot more of snark. Anyway, stick around. The first article is over in Technology Today. And, well, another CNN streaming service is coming because, that totally worked last time. It's an Engadget article, but they say that CNN is laying off more employees and making plans to launch another streaming service, according to a memo from CEO Mark Thompson, obtained by The Hollywood Reporter. Around 200 employees are being cut, affecting 6% of CNN's current staff. Changes are being made in a response to profound and irreversible shifts in the way audiences in America and around the world consume news, according to Thompson. Launching a new streaming service after the abject failure of CNN Plus, the former streaming service, certainly seems to be the way to go. Ian Carlos Campbell over at Engadget.com put the article together. Again, the deck statement says CNN CEO Mark Thompson is laying off employees and eyeing a new way to get subscriptions. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work. There's a little snark in this. The former streaming home of Stanley Tucci, Searching for Italy, is apparently tied to that same thinking. They have a quote. Today I can announce that we plan to develop a new way for digital subscribers at home and abroad to stream news programming from us to any device they choose. It's early days, but we've already established that there's immense demand for it, not just in America, but across much of the world. So they're going to be global news, I suspect. I don't know how that really works out. They say the company launched a subscription to CNN.com in October 2024 for $3.99 per month or $30 per year. Given less than 10,000 daily users at CNN Plus was reportedly able to bring in, it definitely seems like a new streaming service will have an uphill battle. Yeah, CNN. Okay, there's zero strategic advantage in news. You can break a story, but how it's reported, the nature of the reporting, I think plays a big role. The first one out of the gate, it's going to be distributed. It's going to be discussed publicly, privately, etc. Information yearns to be consumed. And you can't protect it, really, because facts are facts. You can't protect facts. The embodiment, to some degree, yeah. But I don't know. Public participation and disclosure, discussion, engagement, it's going to happen, and it's a losing battle. One of the most frustrating things is creating friction. All it does is endear you to the other side, really. I mean, you piss off enough people and they're not going to be interested in you. These paywalls are really doing you a disservice. You should have a value add and then, well, frame your existence around what you can actually make and not as a cash cow where you think that the information is the thing that everybody is after and you can protect that information. It's just not how it works. You should be a service that people are going to and consuming. But that's not what information really is. Not in this kind of embodiment. As soon as people start discussing it, you've lost your, strategic advantage. Anyway, there's more to that discussion, and it would be better hosted on a different show than this. But let's keep going. The next article is over in Non Sequitur News. Patients are dying after a strange cancer treatment on a remote island. Intrigued, an American billionaire named Alan Quasha capitalized on its promise by buying the devices. Xthera, a U.S.-based medical startup, claimed that its cutting-edge blood filtering device could cure cancer. They bought the devices and took over a medical clinic on a Caribbean island in Antigua outside of the purview of U.S. regulators, offering desperate terminally ill cancer patients a chance of being healthy again at the price of $45,000 for each round of treatment. But as the New York Times reports, on the roughly 24 patients treated at the Antigua clinic using the Xthera device, at least 6 have died, likely as a result of their stay, and family members and medical professionals who visited the clinic reported, well, some information that we're going to talk about here. It's over at futurism.com, and under the, the banner of Neoscope, the deck statement says, quote, "I feel so duped by all these people." The article was written by Frank Landemore. Well, the article is sourced from the New York Times for this futurism report, but they say here Kim Hudlow, whose husband David underwent treatment at the Antigua clinic, said, "I feel so duped by all these people. The way this was spun up and the way it was explained, they got me. The Xthera device isn't total quackery, as the New York Times analyzed. It was approved by the Food and Drug Administration for treating emergency COVID-19 cases, and for that purpose, it seems effective. After the pandemic and seeking another stream of income, however, Xthera thought its device might be effective in filtering circulating tumor cells, or CTCs, which are responsible for cancer metastasizing." I need to do some research into this because this is exactly, not in this embodiment, I'm sure, but this is exactly what I think is going to be highly effective. The worst possible outcome for a cancer patient is metastasization or metastasizing cancer, where it basically spreads throughout the body. And it's CTCs, or cancer cell fragments, that can embed themselves again and essentially grow into cancers. These are typically suppressed by a chemical beacon from the main mass of cancer somewhere. And when we wipe out that cancer, the beacon goes away and these CTCs can rebind. This has been documented in research papers. I wish that I have kept references for all of this, but it's so far beyond my capability. Well, let's just say that I think that a device like the Xthera, or a filter that can filter out down to the circulating tumor cells level, would be ideal, because you can basically, it's kind of like a kidney filter, except that it's designed to find and remove CTCs instead of the chemicals that you would normally filter out. Well, anyway, this is brilliant, except that it was designed for COVID-19 cases. The startup's chief regulatory officer, Sanja Ilic, organized a study in Croatia to test the filter's efficacy on cancer patients, and it yielded promising preliminary results, with at least one patient showing a shrunken tumor. But I don't think that it's designed for that. what it should have been focused on is filtering out the blood. But other treatments should be taken to remove the tumor, not just trying to shrink it. It doesn't shrink by itself. But filtering out the blood from CTCs can mitigate the possible metastasizing. So it was enough to woo a billionaire investor, Quasha, however, who invested several $1 million in Xthera through his firm Quadrant Management and began operating a clinic in Antigua via a subsidiary called Quadrant Medical Care, where the experimental treatment wouldn't need approval from U.S. regulators. And that's the shame here. So there's a lot more for this article. New York Times said that they found another patient, Ashley Sullivan, asked Illick why she developed new tumors after her treatment, and Illick insisted that she had it all wrong. Have no idea who told you is not working for you, Illick texted Sullivan. We got your CTCs down to 0. And that may actually be true, but cell masses are constantly kicking off cell fragments, so it would have to be an ongoing thing, filtering periodically, much like dialysis. And I think that's kind of the main ingredient here. You'll have to do other treatments. You'll have to have surgery to remove the mass, but you should get CTCs down to 0, then have the surgery, and then go through the possibility that you might have a mass somewhere else, and then have to continue treatment and continue this CTC removal. Anyway, very fascinating, and I'll have to do some research into this, because at one point I was doing a lot of research into this. My theory was to do something similar to dialysis, but for CTCs, and I stopped paying attention because when it's $45,000 a treatment, regular Joes don't have that. And so the bargaining power and the hope is wiped away. You have no bargaining power. You'll go into a tremendous amount of debt for anything. And then what? You can't discharge medical debt because regulatory capture has basically made it so that you cannot. There's a carve out for medical debt. And so what? You become, your quality of life sucks because fiscally you can't live, but you're alive. So you'll do it, but then you're beholden to, people chasing after you constantly until maybe they try and find a way to put you in jail. And then what? Anyway, there's so much more, and sociopaths are winning. So anyway, let's keep going. This next article is over in the Marble Channel. The moon has been listed as a threatened historic site, but the value of lunar heritage needs defining. Scientific and commercial activities on the moon could permanently change the lunar environment. These activities include sending vehicles to the moon, extracting its resources through mining the lunar surface, building facilities, and extracting water from areas on the moon where sunlight never shines. But you know what? It's a moon. I think that we need to take advantage of it. We need to build a base on it. We need... Oh, it's one of those things where when I say it, I get accused of being naive, but we have to get along. But we can't get our shit together on Earth, let alone on the moon, let alone why are we wasting billions going to Mars? We're not going to find anything. We haven't found anything on the moon that anybody has decided was worthwhile to go back and actually do anything with. What are we going to find on Mars? We should be solving our problems locally and then think about going to Mars. We should go to the moon and build a base there so that we can do fundamental research, but get our shit together here on Earth first. So this article is over. I don't have blocking software. It is the Vivaldi. It has to be because I don't have blocking software. Anyway, Alessandra Marino, Marjan Ajewski from The Conversation put this article together for phys.org. And they say, however, an organization called World Monuments Fund, or WMF, is attempting to protect the moon from being despoiled by adding it to the list of monuments worth protecting, except that it doesn't matter. In this day and age, this type of stuff, protectionist kind of stuff, where you're trying to save for future whatever, it's not going to work. Because unless you can make it for the right side, the correct side, I should say, you're going to get marginalized. You're going to be called all kinds of things. And stopping us from doing something on the moon in this day and age, it's not going to work. Businesses are going to business. They are soulless. They will do whatever they can to make money, and they will marginalize the human for money. More so in this day and age than probably in the last 60 years. So, due to increasing lunar exploration in the current decade, landing sites with leftovers of earlier missions could be damaged, looted, or destroyed. These sites hold historic significance, but they also put old space powers and an idea of exploration that is tied up with the space race at the center of humanity's relationship with space. Our relationship with space, though, is that we are in a vacuum, and we need to find out if we can exploit the moon so that we can benefit domestically for it here on Earth. And I say that because getting to the moon, it has to make economic sense, and it has to come back with either educational sense, academic sense that translates into economic sense, or something of value. It has to have some value, and just being the moon is not good enough, particularly in this day and age. So in making the moon a monument, it is worth asking, are these selected sites really worth memorializing? Whose history is being remembered and considered worth preserving? What values are celebrated with them? It says, for example, are the 2 golf balls smuggled onto the moon and one astronaut's family portrait really heritage for humanity as a whole? They could alternatively be considered litter or a symbol of lack of environmental care, which is what I would agree with. I think it's I think it's silly. Humanity is more than somebody's family picture. It's more than unless they fundamentally change the nature of humanity through like they solve world hunger. They solve global conflict. None of that has happened. So I am not beholden. And plus, I'm not really I don't really like to look back to the past in any other regard than let's not repeat it. And that has wholly failed. So whose heritage? The perceived elitism of space exploration has been challenged since the 1960s. I wouldn't really call that elitism, but it's more amplified now than ever. It's a poignant reminder that for many African Americans, the prioritization of the Apollo program at a time of civil rights protests was a choice steeped in racial inequality. Many people did not feel represented by the ideology and competitive character of early space exploration. Today, in the new space age, as more and more commercial enterprises enter the space sector, critiques of space colonization are also mounting. And it's public money making private billionaires without a thanks, with complete disregard that it is a societal tax. My money is not going to save people. It's going to send a bunch of $45 million rockets to their doom, and it being coined as entertainment. Kiss my shiny metal ass. That's not what I want. And I really, honestly, I don't think anything, by the time you build a rocket today that can make it to Mars, a time frame will have elapsed where we can make a better rocket and beat that older rocket to Mars. Anyway, let's keep moving. This next article is over in Non Sequitur News. Was your local meteorologist laid off? Weather Channel deal leads to cuts. The Allen Media Group's new deal with the Weather Channel is jeopardizing the jobs of dozens of local meteorologists nationwide. Mergers and acquisitions, folks. The article is over at Newsweek. It's by Monica Sager. And they say here in recent years, many local newspapers have either folded or been bought out by larger conglomerates due to the internet and subscription-based pay models. And no, I would say that due to the internet, but it's the distribution of information, like I've been saying. I wrote a paper about the transition from domestic print media to online, and basically the bigger organizations should have moved faster into online, because that is where all of the immediate distribution of news is, and everybody is going to move online at some point. You can't be online, or you can't live an analog life nowadays. You basically have to have a phone, and that gives you access to the internet. And so the local newspapers could have been moving online just as fast. And while they're moving online, if they can't foot that bill, then they print locally. But that's really not what happened. What happened was bigger businesses bought the little newspapers, made them merge into an online environment, and then eventually closed down. Everybody got fired because the reach of the larger newspapers reached into local newspapers. Every small town basically is superseded by a larger newspaper nowadays, and you can get local stuff, but you have to live within that local budget, because who are you appealing if you're doing local? You're appealing to the local community. But again, like I said, information locally can be absorbed into the larger organization and distributed. And so if you happen to be in a locality that's part of a larger distribution, you're done. Your small newspaper is being superseded by the larger organization. So the University of North Carolina found in 2019 that 45% of newspaper staffing has dropped since 2004. This leads to thousands of local communities without a local news outlet, except that citizen journalists could have formed a local newspaper and started local advertising and a grassroots movement, blah, blah, blah. It's all stuff that I talked about historically and offline and online, but in different venues, and not since ohmTown has gone online publicly to be accessed. So on January 18th, Allen Media Group announced in a press release that it's rolling out a groundbreaking format for local weather coverage powered by the Weather Channel across local markets nationwide. So the merger of the information from the Weather Channel since the Weather Channel basically has deals with all of the weather services, it can distribute. So in place of the local weather meteorologist, the Allen Group is implementing a headquarters based in Atlanta that will be led by Carl Parker, a storm and climate specialist and 20-year veteran of the Weather Channel. The initiative will bring additional visual storytelling capabilities using state-of-the-art technology and deep resources. That's the ingredient. But it was all because people saw the writing on the wall and bowed out instead of living within their means of the local community. And because of that, they sold, got their money, and went somewhere else. Or they weren't valued as anything, and instead of weathering the storm and growing it, and again, living within the local community's budget, they went off to greener pastures. It's why we're losing family farms, because big money comes in and either buys them, or the younger generation leaves to make more money. And then people go, well, we're losing family farms. Well, we're losing family farms because of wants, needs, and desires, and the prices are not commensurate. Why? Because big business is driving everything down in price, and you're going to see that. Wages are going to continue to be suppressed for many. I'd say, Pareto principle is probably going to apply here. 20% will make more, 80% will suffer. Anyway, So yeah, that's what's going on. The Allen Media Group is basically going to wipe out local weather people. And they're proud of it because they're making more money and you're tuning them in and not the local anything, right? Let's keep going. As soon as equity investing is brought online to some enterprise, that's when a private equity group just is going to ruin the party for everybody. But those in the equity group, they don't care. You should have done something else. Pick yourself up by your bootlaces. Anyway, let's move on. The next article is over in Epic Game Store. Has a new, it's in mobile, but the Epic Game Store has a new free weekly game, and this one is artsy and wholesome as hell. It's Thursday, according to this article, and we're in a time machine episode, so I need to be moving here pretty quick. Which means that it's time for another Epic Game Store free game. Today, everyone will have the opportunity to download and play Behind the Frame, the finest scenery. And this one, admittedly, is more Dwayne-coded than they'd like to admit. An artsy, wholesome game about painting where they'll have a chance to peacefully reflect, or you'll have a chance to peacefully reflect on life and the human condition. Sign them up. So the article is put together by Dwayne Jenkins over at Vice.com. That's why it said it's more Dwayne-coded than they'd like to admit. So Behind the Frame is a vivid interactive fiction about an aspiring artist on the cusp of finishing the final piece of their gallery submission, a relaxing, eloquent experience that you can play at any pace. Become immersed in a panoramic world filled with resplendent colors, beautiful hand-animated visuals, and a smooth, easy-listening soundtrack, says the Epic Games Store page. So you can go and check it out over on the Epic's loader, or over on Epic's loader, or you can watch more of check out this article by following the link, which will be included in the show notes over on YouTube and the podcast. This won't be streamed to Twitch because I couldn't make it yesterday or today to do the show live. I had to get in that time machine. So to you, dear listener, you may be listening to it when you think it's Thursday, but again, I'm in my time machine. There's a paradox. If you look too hard, your brain will start bleeding. Anyway, the next article is over in the Mobile Channel. Mittens the Maine Coon took 3 flights in one day after being left on a plane. This cat is huge. I love Maine Coons. It's one that I want. I want a Maine Coon, but I have Savannah cats, but F3 Savannah cats. I want an F1, but not every state allows that. So a gorgeous Maine Coon from New Zealand became a stowaway after being mistakenly left in her cage in the cargo plane of a hold, which pisses me off. I'll take that cat, and it will never be left in a cargo hold. Man, they are expensive as hell, though. Maine Coons are like $3,000. So, well, like purebred ones. After hours of waiting for Mittens on the plane's freight area, the owners learned their beloved furry friend had been overbooked in the cargo hold. By the time they realized the mistake, Mittens was already on her way back to New Zealand. No, well, it wasn't because of their negligence. It's because of the flight crew. So it was not a great start to our new life in Melbourne because we didn't have the family. We weren't complete, says Margot Nias, Mittens' owner, per the Associated Press. So you can see information gets shared. So thankfully, ground staff alerted the pilot that the poor cat was still on board, and he turned on the heating in the cargo area to ensure a comfortable flight. When she arrived back in New Zealand, Nias' original pet moving company retrieved Mittens at the airport and got her boarded on another flight to Australia. So, wow. Wild. Again, there's more at this article, so please follow the links and give some attention to Vice.com. The next article is over in Non Sequitur News as well. A rabbit that was lost for 120 years found hopping around in the mountains. The long-lost Omeltemi cottontail has been spotted on camera after more than a century, sparking hope for its conservation. The article is over at newsweek.com. Tom Howarth put the article together, and they've got some video and some stills of this elusive rabbit that was spotted by a team led by Jose Alberto Almazan Catalan, president of the Instituto para el Manejo y Conservación de la Biodiversidad. So the Institute of Conservation and Biodiversity. There's a little bit more to it. It says just showing that it had been 100 years and no other scientist had seen a live Omiltemi rabbit is incredible, Almazan Catalan said in a statement. It's totally different from the regular cottontail, and they were completely amazed and very happy to have had the opportunity to see one. They began their search in 2019, initially focused on areas where the rabbit was first documented by naturalist Edward William Nelson in 1904. Although the forest near Chilpancingo yielded no results, the team shifted to more remote, high elevation areas, and with the help of local hunters and interviews, camera traps, they confirmed sightings in 7 out of 10 targeted locations. So the little bunnies moved up a little bit. Moving on up. All right, so the next article is over in the Marble Channel. Here's how much the Best Picture nominees grossed at the box office. The article is by Madeline Fitzgerald over at quartzqz.com. And it says here in the deck statement, small films, The Brutalist, Amelia Perez will go up against box office smashes Wicked and Dune Part 2. And they've got a slideshow for this, and I don't know if it's going to have the price or the values in there, but yeah, Wicked and Dune Part 2 are up. Bowen Yang of Saturday Night Live and indie actress, why break it down like that? Indie actor and comedian Rachel Sonnett announced the nominations from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Samuel Goldwyn Theater. The event was initially postponed in response to the Los Angeles fires. They'll be held March 2nd from Los Angeles' Dolby Theater, with comedian Conan O'Brien serving as the event's host. So let's see if they're going to have all of the slides with the prices. Yes, they are. Yay. So Conclave, I hear, is supposed to be pretty big on this. Dune Part 2, Wicked, and The Substance, I think, are the bigger. So Dune Part 2 and Wicked are really going to just kind of crush everybody, I think. Otherwise, The Substance and Conclave are supposed to be pretty good. I don't know about The Complete Unknown, but anyway, there you go, folks. Let's keep going. This next article is over in Non Sequitur News as well. Raisin recall prompts warning to customers. Apna Wholesale Incorporated is recalling Paris Premium, P-A-R-A-S, Paris. I'm not sure if that's how it's actually pronounced. Anyway, premium golden raisins due to the presence of undeclared sulfur dioxide. If I recall correctly, sulfur dioxide is actually used to do two things: preserve and change their color, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyway, Newsweek reached out, but Anna Commander is the one that wrote this article for Newsweek.com. Let's make sure here. So food allergies impact everybody, so it might have if you are sensitive to sulfites and you eat the recalled raisins, you might have a severe or life-threatening reaction because of an allergy. They were discovered after a routine sampling, which actually may go away because the Food and Drug Administration does some, and the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets Food Inspector detections. They might get budgetary cutbacks with the new administration making all kinds of cuts, and basically you all have to fend for yourself. Screw you if you get sick. That's basically, I think, the ideology. So let's see if they actually say. Yeah, they don't say what it's actually used for. So hold on. Let me do a quick search here. Yeah, so sulfur dioxide is used to change the color of raisins, particularly to maintain a light golden color by preventing browning and oxidation during the drying process. Essentially, it acts as a bleaching agent, preserving the fruit's natural color by inhibiting the development of darker pigments. And that actually happens with a lot of foods, by the way. So, like things that are like tomatoes and other, fruits in general, different gases are used to impact the perception that it is ripe. So, anyway, let's keep going. Our last article is over at 4-Wheel Tech. This one is actually making its rounds. It's pretty interesting. Hackers crack Subaru's connected services to access location data, door locks, and more. If you own a modern Subaru, chances are you've heard of Starlink, the company's connected services suite, which lets you control your car through an app or call roadside assistance to your location. That system, though, has other functionality that you might not know, like storing your car's history and accessing the computer. The system has since been patched, but its admin panel left location data open to hackers. Amber Da Silva put the article together for jalopnik.com. And it says here that if the location, it says storing your location's data history for the last year and making that information available through an admin panel that was left wide open for hackers. Penetration testing team Sam Curry and Shabam Shah discovered a vulnerability in Starlink's administrator console, which allowed hackers to compromise the accounts of Subaru employees and gain admin access to the system. With this, hackers could track a car's Starlink location pings for the last year, as well as typical Starlink app functionality, locking, unlocking, geofencing, and more. There's a video of everything that went on, or discussion called Subaru Vulnerability Proof of Concept. These forensic debriefs are typically posted in either written form or with a video or both, but after some resolution is found. But meanwhile, people who could abuse it were abusing it. Possibly. There probably isn't any evidence that they've found, or they'll tell you that there isn't any. The admin panel allowed access to any Subaru in the United States, Canada, or Japan. All it required was the VIN, which Curry and Shaw could get from registration records using a license plate number. That means that any Subaru on the street with a visible license plate could theoretically be accessed by this vulnerability. And thus, if they know your car, they can just unlock it remotely and start it and whatnot. Of course, being good white hats, Curry and Shaw didn't publish the vulnerability until it had already been patched. But feather in their cap for notifying. This is the ethical thing to do. Don't be an unethical hacker. You will get caught in the United States eventually. And anyway. So let's reboot our admin panel, which will bring us back to the front page of ohmtown.com and shut down the time machine. I am Mayor Watt. I am signing off, and we're going to reset everything and come back for the Friday episode, probably around 7. We'll see. I have to have a discussion with the sentient AI. See you in a little bit.